Okay. We should be back live streaming on YouTube, and we are returning from executive session at 9:38 p.m., having moved into executive session at 9:12 p.m. Thank you, everyone in the public, for your patience and for hanging in there with us, as well as our building leaders. Very good. That will move us on to item B, 6B, second reading of the Title IX proposed policy. So earlier, this was distributed to all board members. It will certainly be a part of our meeting materials available to the public as well, that will be posted. I will make the offer to the board to bring it up on the screen and go through it. Or if a motion, if anyone would like to make a motion to adopt, and bear with me, I'm going to make sure I have the titles here. Adopt the policy regarding prohibition of sex discrimination and sexual harassment in the workplace for personnel, and the policy regarding prohibition of sex discrimination and sexual harassment for students. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff. Do I have a second? Thank you, Randy.
Randy.
Any discussion? Yes, Jeff.
John, the only thing that I noticed is that on page 4, you've got a date of 11/19/2020, and it seems to me like it should be today's date.
That is correct.
That's the only thing that I saw.
Thank you. And that, I'm sorry, was that the personnel or the student one?
Both of them.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Very good. So adding the correction of adding today's date to each of the policies. Any additional discussion? No? Okay. All in favor?
Sorry, no, I was just unmuted.
Sorry,
No,
Steph.
I would say that this policy just confirms the regulation that we are currently following.
Right. Yeah. And I think we're one of the first, I think we are the first board to adopt this. This is actually this is previous administration's policy or guidance on Title IX. And this is simply us adopting that and making sure that we're compliant with what the current interpretation of this law is. Very good. No additional discussion. All in favor? Aye. I see
Aye.
Randy, I see Devin, I heard Gretchen, I see Jeff, and I see Jenny. Very good. All right, the motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. That takes us to C. So 6C is a discussion and possible action on the enrichment modalities and recovering from COVID. I know that Dr. Harrison had some thoughts he wanted to add, and I think Stephanie also, Dr. Pearson-Ugal was going to add some thoughts here. I think just briefly as an introduction, over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've met 2 times with Stephanie, Dr. Harrison, the board chair from Reading, to discuss the possibility of offering some kind of sort of connectivity between the various summer programs that are happening in our communities. Dr. Pearson-Ugal has reached out to the Easton Educators Association because we want to make sure that there's both a capacity and an appetite for participating in something like that. So we have our sort of normal extended sort of school year programming that happens for those in our special education community, but we are looking to expand the sort of offering to sort of many of our students in the community, offering them some opportunities for some academic enrichment, as well as connectivity to some of the summer programming that the library is putting on, and connectivity to some of the summer programming that is happening from our Parks and Rec department, and really saying, hey, this takes sort of all hands on deck for us to help to start to address the fairly serious work that our students have faced as an uphill battle over the last year, to really sticking together in terms of social and emotional awareness, in terms of academics, and certainly in terms of the ability to, connect with one another. So we're hoping to build something by sort of joining forces with, everybody who cares about kids in the town. And making sure we can do something there. I think there's obviously more to this than just some of the summer work that we're talking about, but just wanted to make sure that sort of people were aware that that's something that we're talking about, and we should have more information on that in the next few weeks. So I'll shut up now and let Dr. Pearson-Ugal and Dr. Harrison.
I'll jump in first. I'm just going to share just a couple of slides. This is part of a presentation that was started last month with Administrative Council. We actually have an Administrative Council meeting at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we'll continue this conversation. And it's really all about, there's been so much discussion and work and research around academic recovery after COVID, and looking at the most effective models. And so one of the things that we are focusing on, just in the broader picture of how we're approaching this work, in thinking about the summer work and thinking about next year and thinking about the ways that we will lay out that we're using some of the additional federal funds focused on COVID recovery, is around acceleration. And so acceleration is essentially just a strategy where we are making adjustments to the curriculum and instruction to accelerate exposure to grade level or grade appropriate work and advance the learning progress of students. So not just good teaching, although there are all these really good teaching practices, but it is really interconnected, intentional, and a curated set of skills that's really focused on prioritizing grade level skills. It's important, we believe, that while remediation and reteaching can be sort of what seems like the logical way to fill gaps, what ends up happening very often is that students fall further behind and never end up really encountering grade level work. So if you think about what we already know, we talked about this with administrators, what we already know about students when there are gaps in learning. So we experience this every year with summer learning loss. So that is a gap in daily instruction. And while there might be some starting off at the beginning of the year with thinking about recovery, teachers typically approach that with an acceleration mindset that you're starting with where you expect kids to be, introducing them right off the bat to grade level material and really accelerating that work forward. To not do that really could keep our students in a position where they are always trying to catch up. And the biggest impact this would have on students who are already vulnerable learners. We see this work, this acceleration focus, not just as a way to address students' needs kind of from an intervention standpoint in tier 2 or tier 3 intervention, but really thinking about taking this acceleration approach to core instruction. And so this framework has these 5 different components to it. And what you see in the middle is essentially the instructional core. This, at the risk of getting into edgy speak and a whole bunch of jargon, the big picture here is that we will be exploring all 5 of these areas as we design what this acceleration framework looks like with our students moving forward. So this will be work that we're doing with our administrators, that we're doing with our teacher leaders. The good news about this is we could think about embedding some of these strategies now. So we're not just thinking about next year, or we're not just thinking about summer work, but this really is, this framework really ties nicely into, just our overall focus on student-centered learning, and we'll be able to build off of skills that teachers already have. So the rest of these slides are for administrators tomorrow, so I don't want to keep going and then invite Sue and Kim to tune out while I'm talking tomorrow. But that just gives sort of a basic overview. And I would say, in talking with many of my colleagues, superintendent colleagues around the state, there's been a lot of discussion about this focus on acceleration versus focus on remediation. So as much as we talk about covert recovery and learning loss, just know, I think it's important for the board and the community to know that our approach is acceleration and really continuing to accelerate students and exposing them to grade level materials. Stephanie?
Yeah, so a part of this planning will include using what we know currently about our students' strengths and their needs, and then using that information to plan forward. And when I say plan forward, I mean over the next several months that school is still in session, as well as over the summer, and then into next year. And the approach of looking at the opportunities that we have to engage students over the summer includes both enrichment that would serve academic needs as well as social and emotional needs, and a more academic focus that would shore up some of the skills that represent just unfinished learning for our students. We do know that our students will need, many of our students will need some additional practice to keep going, both this spring and then through the summer, so that we can continue to take the approach next year that we're moving forward. We're moving forward with big questions and inquiries and exciting learning, and that school will continue to engage students in the ways that make them want to come to school, and not focus instead on the idea that they've done something wrong or they haven't learned enough, and therefore we're going to focus on remediation. So that said, I thought it would be important for the board to have an update regarding student performance. At the elementary level, our students in grades K through 5 were assessed in January using the Dibbles 8 reading assessment and the Acadians math assessment. While the reading performance generally was on par with what we've seen in years past, the math performance was broken down into 2 different categories: concepts and applications, which is really the meat of what we want students to learn and be able to apply, and then skills. And then calculation. The students showed a relative weakness in the area of calculation. So I said in a recent meeting, this is probably the best piece of bad news that we could receive, in that it's far harder to shore up conceptual understanding or to correct misunderstandings than it is to provide additional time for skill practice and reinforcement. So the weakness that we are seeing at the elementary level, the relative weakness, is in the area of math calculations. So that will continue to provide an area for our focus both in the classroom with Tier 1 differentiation as well as through intervention. At the middle school level, the picture is still emerging. As you heard, the NWEA assessment was administered last week. Makeups continue to be completed, and the teams are still comparing as I explained earlier in the meeting, the slightly depressed score profile of the NWEA information with other internal measures. It does appear at the middle school level that our students are showing needs in ILA, Integrated Language Arts, as well as in some of the grades in math. So it looks as if 6th grade in particular, the early reports on the NWA would indicate a need for additional reinforcement in math. That picture is continuing to come into focus as our middle school data teams will be meeting in the days ahead to compare not only the more standardized measures, but also internal measures as well. So looking at this summer, we're especially excited to work with our teachers to design a program that will meet many needs. So the early response on the Easton Education Association survey is that we could have from 7 to 15 teachers that are eager to participate in this work, and roughly similar response from the Reading teachers. So by looking at the offerings across the two towns, we hope to be able to provide opportunities to our students that would include remote instruction for those families that still don't feel comfortable coming into the schools, so they could sign up for academic support sessions, perhaps a limited time, say 30 minutes for one session, X number of sessions a week. And then also potentially sign up for something that's really engaging a different part of that student, whether it's online scrapbooking or something that's more in the enrichment category, which again could feed their talents in a different skill set, but also be healthy in terms of their social and emotional growth. In person, we hope to provide something that's very similar. The difference will be in person is that this is where the collaboration with the town comes in. We hope that our students will be able to sign up for sessions that would piggyback with town offerings, and that we would have a coordination with the town so that parents would be able to drop their child off in the morning, and the student might participate in some academic intervention, perhaps move on to a 2-hour enrichment activity, and then transition in the afternoon to more of a camp experience. And we would manage with the town support the handoff in terms of moving from one activity to another, and therefore provide parents with a full day of childcare. So that's what we're thinking right now. We're actually quite excited about the possibilities, and we're so appreciative for the teachers' enthusiasm, and as well as the board's support and the town's support as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any questions for Stephanie? Okay, very good.
I'm sorry, John, I was on.
I didn't get my hand up.
Sorry about that.
I don't feel like there's really been an opportunity for the board to sort of discuss yes or no, that this is kind of developed and we're just learning of this. And I actually have some real concerns about inequities in experience that this will create. You know, if parents are not able to send their children during the summer, not interested in sending their children during the summer, if they're just don't want need the year to be over and don't want to send their kids back to this kind of an experience. I would much rather see the curriculum adjusted and responsive across the board, just going into the rest of this year and next year, than I'm concerned about the potential for increasing the differences in skill sets and opportunities moving into September. I just think it's worth more of a discussion and gathering more feedback. It's sounding a little bit like a done deal. And then I'm also have questions about the resources and the funding.
May I just jump in and offer perhaps a slight clarification? If our description sounded as if we were going to move the curriculum ahead over the summer, then we were not clear. There would be no obligation, of course, for any staff member or family to participate, and any participation would be entirely supplemental. It is not, we will not tackle new topics. So the sort of acceleration mindset that Dr. Harrison was describing was more about sort of what is our mindset as we move into the next stage of this pandemic, which many are terming as the recovery mode. And so as we move into recovery, are we thinking about fixing something that needs to be fixed, right? And thinking about it in a way of remediation, or are we talking about embracing the challenge of acceleration and moving forward? But that would not at all necessitate anything occurring over the summer. This is just an additional offering that we are excited to explore.
But you articulated exactly my concern. I didn't get the I wasn't under the impression that you would be advancing the curriculum over the summer and that some kids would have access and some kids would not. I'm concerned that the students who choose to participate are going to be academically in a different position than students who don't. And that it's going to create a sense of pressure, perhaps in the community or for some families feeling like, oh my gosh, if I don't send my kid, they're going to be behind come September. And that I would prefer to hear discussions surrounding how are we addressing the differences we're seeing through testing and experience that, you know, from January through June. How are we going to use that to inform changes in pacing or curriculum or practice come September, not over the summer? I'm concerned that the opportunity as we're presenting it, this offering during the summertime will actually create a divide that then becomes more challenging to address in the fall.
So as I understood it, we would be doing, it wouldn't be either or. I like the work for the next year would be, that would still happen as if it would be planned as if students weren't part of the summer program to make, just like any beginning of the year, there's an assumption that some kids have academic support, some kids go to summer camp, some kids read all summer, some kids like mine, you know, spend some weeks at the beach and like maybe they don't read as many books as they should. So is that a true, what is there a plan, I guess, for going into the school year next year and thinking about this acceleration framework and how, you know, what if only 30% of the students or 40% of the students go to the summer program? Would the other students be disadvantaged, or like, how do you think about what that looks like going into next year?
Right. So the curriculum pacing for next year is not going to be adjusted on the basis of what occurs or does not occur over the summer and any type of assessment. There will not be any type of sort of formal assessment over the summer that would inform a major curriculum change. We will conduct, as we always do, fall baseline assessments. Next year, that will probably occur earlier in the fall. You might remember that in this year, the state urged districts not to conduct any assessments in the month of September. So we're planning for next year using typical curriculum pacing, knowing that we always differentiate to meet the needs of the students in each and every classroom. So any adjustment or differentiation would take place on the basis of the fall assessments, as it always does.
Which could be materially altered by some students participating in an enrichment program with additional practice and some not. Maybe it's a discussion for another day. I just would appreciate more information, more specifics, and more opportunities for board discussion and feedback before it's accepted.
Yeah, I hear Jenny's comment, and I think the natural inclination is we don't know enough yet to what the work will include over the summer, so it's hard to discern whether, well, I guess I'll take a step back. How will parents know whether they should or should not consider participating?
So it will be completely an individual family choice. So parents will have the same information about their child's performance as they would in another year on the basis of both standardized and internal informal assessments. And then the decision to participate is completely a family one. This is not, we're not looking at the academic side of things being by invitation, and that some students will really be urged to participate. These will be offerings to all, and really no different than the student who might be tutored over the summer, or really engage in academic study over the summer, or read more books, as Devin offered, compared to perhaps another child that wants and needs to take the summer off and does very little sort of academic work in the summer. And isn't that wonderful? Takes the summer to play and go on family vacations and learn in lots of ways that we don't measure. All of those things are possible, and there's no arm twisting for the participation. I'll put it that way.
My last devil's advocate comment is that those things are not typically framed as an offering of the school district, right, in a COVID recovery phase. So I think the impetus and perhaps pressure and concern, if some choose to do it, or if you don't choose to do it, is my child going to be at a disadvantage? I think this is very different than a typical summer program of someone may choose to have an elementary school teacher tutor their child in reading once a week for a few weeks, versus a district sponsored and offered collaborative effort. I mean, it's certainly far more extensive, and it's not something we've ever done before. This is very atypical.
Just as a point of context, I'm sorry, go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, I mean, so I think one is, I think a month ago when we were in the midst of virtual learning, maybe virtual hybrid learning, it's all a blur. I think there was a request from some of us, and I was probably one of those board members, that said, I think if there's any extra funds, or if there's federal funds dedicated, and I know the new COVID relief bill that, I assume will go on to President Biden's desk in the next few days, will include state money that is dedicated specifically for summer. And there's certain states around the country that are already allocating funds and requiring every district to actually do a summer program for their students. So I think we asked the administration, if I remember correctly, to think about summer. And I think number two is just, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I could also just be a little biased, because I think there's a huge need and for families who will be around town, especially those who have been financially impacted by COVID, to have options in the summer that, are lower cost, but also high quality. And it sounds like this isn't just going to be an academic focus, like hours and hours of, sitting at math and reading workbooks, but like meant to be something that replicates more of a camp program that has opportunities to reinforce things that students have already learned. So I think in any summer, there's kids who potentially go to some summer programs and others who don't. And I think every year our teachers do a great job of figuring that out. I don't know if there's a way to get around potentially sending some of that work home. So every kid who potentially students who don't want to attend, you have, hey, here's the books we're going to read, or here's the math, assignments that we would work on, or here's a STEM kit that you guys can do at home with your family, maybe mitigate some of that concern that not everybody would participate. In the just so that kids who are families who would want to participate have that opportunity.
It's also worth noting that this is something that has been going on in Reading for years, where students will attend some offering at the school and then move into some summer camp opportunities. So it's sort of modeled after a sort of a process that has been working for a while and that has rave reviews.
I just think it would be important to bring the parents into the discussion, outline what these possibilities might look like, get their input. I think it's fair to say that a lot of parents have really enjoyed the last 8 or 9 months and just can't wait for the summertime to come so they can enjoy something different, something that would actually put a smile on their kid's face and that they could rejoice as a family. So let's make the parents part of the solution, and I think if we do that, then I think we could all feel a whole lot better about it.
Good, great feedback. Okay. Anything else for Stephanie? Okay. I know we are at 10:08 p.m. Clarence, I think the next item 6D is health insurance funding decision, where I think you're going to have.
John,
Right. Yes.
When we talked the other day about adding this item, this agenda item, it was far broader reaching than summer curriculum. Are we going to broach, some of the topics surrounding offerings for next year, modalities, snow days? I mean, we covered quite a few possible topics of discussion.
I think if you have questions, I think this would definitely be the place in the agenda to ask them.
I don't know that it's really questions. I think it's going to feel uncomfortable and like it's more board member comment if it's not really a part of what the attended agenda item was meant to encompass. So I guess I'm asking for a little bit of guidance there. Are you intending to put some of those things on future agendas, or are you wanting to push that off until April?
No, absolutely, we can do that. I think it's probably, I hope, based on today, that snow days is not something we have to deal with for several months. So we could add it to the April or May or June agendas. Modalities, sort of the way that we're thinking about, I actually asked today whether or not we have guidance from the state about whether or not we're going to be required by the state to offer a distance or cohort C option next year. And what that looks like. I suspect there is going to be some kind of requirement, but it may give school districts significantly more flexibility on how they meet that requirement. But there's a lot, and sort of the answer from central office was it really would be nice to have clarity on that from the state. And unfortunately, the state is just not providing that clarity yet. So some of these items I think do have to wait until future. Until just more is known from the state, and we're kind of living in a not an informational rich environment right now on some of those issues. So and I think this frankly should be a standing agenda item, right? And we can talk about the specific things that go under it each month, because every one of those items, sort of enrichment modalities and recovering from COVID, is going to be with us for some time. Does that make sense, Jenny?
Yeah, it does. I think we probably need to revisit a separate conversation and get more specific about agenda items for the April meeting. I don't think it makes sense to try to insert a whole bunch of, potentially disconnected ideas right now.
Yep. Okay. Good. Any additional conversation or discussion for this item? Okay. Clarence? Health insurance funding.
Sent you all, I actually sent it twice. There was a calc error I discovered when I was going through it. As you know, we have sort of a two-step process to create this information. I'm going to share my screen in a moment. We get the information, or Vicki gets information in from Anthem about claims, and then we have to check the bank statements about payments. And then based on the data Vicki does, I go create the reports you all get on a monthly basis. If you recall last month, and again, the same caveat for this month, Anthem changed their system in January. So the claims are going to look artificially low, and I think that applies to both January and February. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, which doesn't help us in not making decisions. John, I need you to allow me to share my screen, please.
You should be able to. You're a co-host.
Now I can. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Can everyone see that?
It's coming up. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so the numbers came in yesterday. We spent yesterday and today, crunching numbers, and we try. And the behind the scenes, I'm trying to automate this a little bit, but the thing I want to point out to you all at the top there, your reserve fund balance beginning of $718,000. You start the year off, which is, as you look across, it's sort of the strongest fund balance you guys have had in recent memory. And we all know that there was a change a couple years ago to the HSA. But if you go down from that column to the right, you see our current fund balance is just under 400,000. What's interesting is we go down a little further, you look at the claims for January, it was only $86,000. And remember we talked about that, the Anthem not having a change in the system, so the claims are going to be artificially low. I think that carried over into February also, because that's 110 in February. If you scroll across, you see the order of magnitude. Last year, January was 253,000. February is 206,000. So you're getting skewed numbers, and it just hasn't washed through the system yet. It's going up. So my ability to give you advice or counsel on what you should do for next year is somewhat limited because I got these skewed numbers. Now, I know for a fact we got a warning last week there's going to be a big, claims number come in, and we checked. We had $900,000 withdrawn from our bank account last week, so it's not reflecting these numbers. So when we get to our March numbers, it'll probably be reflected. But based on what I'm saying, if you want to maintain your fund balance up that $700,000 level, you may want to think about if we have any funds left over the end of the year making a contribution. I don't know, since I wasn't here, I'm not privy to what was the decision to go from the 47,000 to the 718,000. So I don't know if that was a conscious decision or what, I wasn't here for that. But if you want to maintain that sort of 3-month level, depending how this March pans out, we may need to make a contribution to get it back up to that 3 months level of coverage.
So the recommendation has been to target the sort of 20 to 25 range, right? 20 to 25%, right? And
Yes.
Jeff, feel free to jump in here as well.
Okay.
How are we tracking to that? Yeah, and I know you're saying it looks like we're going to have a big hit in this next month. Do you have a sense for whether or not we're tracking towards that as a percentage?
We were up until December. Notice in December we had 318,000. Then it drops off because of Anthem's system change. So there's a number there, but is it a true reflection of what happened with claims? Because the data just doesn't get there. So I have a sneaky suspicion that given the large withdrawal that happened last week, that March number may jump up to 300 some odd thousand just to sort of as a catch up. I don't know that for a fact, but I have to go, since they draw it out for all 3 districts, I have to go look at all 3 districts to sort of see where it is. I know how much was taken out. I don't know the allocation between the 3 districts, what goes to where. But just to give you an idea, when I look at the Reading numbers, when I prefer Reading report, Reading had like a 5-figure number. I know that's nowhere in the realm of possibility. So it's all sort of wonky because of the system change from Anthem. It's working itself out, but I really I don't have a comfort level based on the data for these last 2 months. As you see, we were trending, on average, we were fine, but these last 2 months are throwing the average off significantly.
Well, Clarence, if you take January and February and you add 300,000 onto it, and for March, and you divide by 3, that's 165,000 average.
Yes.
Which is right exactly where we would want to be.
I'm hoping for 300, Jeff. That's what I'm hoping for. I just don't know what it's going to be.
Well, yeah, I mean it's as you say, it's at 900,000, and that's spread over 4 groups, right? Central,
Correct.
Reading, Easton, and Region 9. I with all the things that we're trying to get done, and all the additions that we want. Well, I won't call them additions, I'll call them restorations.
Restorations.
And the 718,000 balance, that's just the way it worked out. That wasn't part of some grand scheme. So that if we had to take a little out of that to get us to the finish line, I think we'd be okay. So we got 4 months to go, and we're tracking better than what we did last year. I think it would be safe to stay at 2,601,838.
Yeah, I would, back of the envelope, I would agree with you, but it's with the caveat, I need more data given these, but I would tend to agree with you. And the question becomes, if you decide to stay at the flat, number, and things sort of change in the next 2 months, then if we have any money left over, then you can just sort of contribute, make an early payment.
Could do that too, sure.
Right.
Yep.
That way you can sort of play both hands at the same time.
Yep. If we ended up with 259, and anything that we do as far as a summer program is now either paid by either one of the two federal grants that we're going to get,
exactly,
then that gives us the kind of flexibility that none of us, I think, expected 30 days ago.
Right.
So again, trying to get done what we want to get done to get us back to fully running the way we should. Those are dollars that I'd like to spend on kids rather than on keeping a health balance up to a certain number.
Yep.
I would agree and support that position, Jeff.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
My 2 cents, I don't know what there's no decision to be made from this because the numbers aren't right. So how do we get Anthem to give us the right numbers?
It's a question of the processing, Randy. So like last week, I got a call from Brown & Brown warning me there was going to be this big withdrawal. Don't be freaked out about it because it was sort of the delay of their system changeover. And sure enough, I literally, we looked at the account and it was like there was $5,000 in the account. I'm like, what the hell? We saw they drew out $900,000. So it's going to work itself out. So by the time we get our next report, it should have worked itself out. But that happened last week. These numbers were already in place. So it's just timing issue, Randy.
Well, do we know that? I guess that's my question. And second of all, we get a rebate on their processing because their processing stinks, it sounds like.
I don't know if it's a question of the processing stinks. I think they switched. No, we're going through a new platform. They went through a new platform and effective January 1. Like we all got issued new ID cards. They switched a whole lot of things over, and the process when they did it, it came in. They didn't draw on the claims. There's just a time issue when they drew on the claims. It came in February, and now the fair ones, it's all been sort of pushed back a little bit.
That's fine. That's their business. Our business is not operating accounting software. So it's not the same thing as switching over to e-finance, but I'm done. But this is, we don't need to make any decisions tonight because we don't have enough information to make any decisions as a board. My 2 cents. So.
Well, Randy, I don't disagree with you. I think it's very hard to do this if the numbers aren't right. But we're gonna have to make a decision because the Board of Finance is going to, in April, is going to give us a number, and our April meeting is April 20th, and the budget will be put to bed before then.
Right.
So we might want to consider a special meeting once those numbers come in, if they are substantially different than what Clarence is suggesting in terms of 300 to 350,000. If that's all it is, then I think we survive it. But if it's somehow materially different, then it might require another discussion.
Okay, but my second point is, Jeff, the reserve fund balance of 399 or thereabout, I don't know if that number is right because it doesn't appear to me, if somebody scrolls up the screen, that we've contributed 8 months worth of fund deposits, if you will, into the account. But
that number is right.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Randy, that I will assume that number is correct, because what Vicky does is, based on the claim, she funds and makes requests, or my finance team, I need a check for X dollars from the X district to contribute to the account. So that balance is reflective of all the requests that Vicky's made to date, and she's made claims based on these numbers to date.
okay, but let's just do this. 2.6 million divided by 12 multiplied by 8 is at $1.2 million. That's all I'm saying. So I don't think it's right, but we can move on because we got a lot of other stuff to do.
Well, Rand, the $1.2 million includes your starting balance.
No, it doesn't. Deposits is deposits. Anyways, that's fine. We'll have another crack at this, I'm sure. So I'm not concerned about it. There's nothing to do tonight because it's just there's too much misinformation for me. So, but that's okay. I mean, again, it fortunately doesn't need to get resolved tonight, but as Jeff said, it will in the next probably 30 days. But so anyways, you see what I'm saying, Clarence? Like,
yeah, Rain, I see what you're saying now. Yes.
Okay.
1.7.
All right. To be continued.
Yep.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay. All right. That takes us to 6E. Board of Finance budget presentations, preview and feedback. So shared a draft and then an updated draft once we received the sort of improved summary today of the numbers. And I'm just gonna bring that up on the screen here. All right. So you should all have a PDF of this, and we'll share that as a part of the meeting materials as well. First, just in Rydell will jump in as well. Really making sure that we're all clear on the core themes of doing right by our students and doing right by our town. And that we know we have a number of items that we need to work on. We know that our enduring educational priorities of academic excellence and creation of a sound community of learners, as well as making sure that we have future ready learners, that remains a priority for us. That we have special challenges in front of us this year to do right by the students in terms of recovering from COVID. That includes both academic, social, emotional, as well as making sure that we're able to take advantage of some of the things that COVID forced us to do that we could actually use as opportunities, and we should make sure that we're taking advantage of those wherever possible, and making sure that ultimately we're helping students to realize their full potential. Also, doing right by our students makes it means that we have to take a very hard look at those places where we need the restorations that Jeff alluded to before. We've stretched thin over time, and that has taken a cost. It certainly has affected our programs, and we'll talk about that specifically. We also know that doing right by our town is about giving credit to the hard work that our Board of Finance has done over many, many, many years to make sure that we have a sound and responsible fiscal platform that we're standing on. And because of, in many ways, because of that work, we find ourselves today in a position where our town is in very good financial shape compared especially to, sort of surrounding towns or elsewhere in the United States. We know that our citizens prioritize education, and we know that it is important, especially if we're going to have a basic conversation about the supply and demand conversation for housing, that we're able to keep pace with similar towns. I'm going to go quickly through this slide because I think everyone here is well aware of the process that we've gone through, starting in December with contracts in healthcare, January talking about new positions in programs and restorations, February sort of putting the complete budget together, and then finally here we are in March submitting to the Board of Finance. We started with a number of 6.1 essentially. This is where our sort of first budget number landed us. We took a look at a number of opportunities, and essentially in that first presentation, the board asked central office to go back and look at each one of the items here and to say, we think there are opportunities. And actually that's not true. We asked them to look at the first 4 or 5, but the final 2, I think central office discovered as additional opportunities to reduce that budget. So we went from 6.1 at the onset to a 4.09 budget as the sort of bottom line answer. And the way that we get there is, largely a sort of huge portion of that is basic contractual increases for existing staff. That is a 3.17% increase for that specific line item, which is an impact of 1.91% on the overall budget. We then see the overall budget impact of a series of new positions and restorations. So for instance, the 4th grade teacher that's necessary to maintain class sizes that we are aimed at and have committed to over time at Samuel Staples, the restoration of the media specialist, a new 0.5 social worker, sort of addition of 0.5 to a social worker at Helen Keller, as well as the restoration of extracurricular stipends and the PE professional, paraprofessional at HKMS. That leads us to $260,390 for an overall impact of 1.53%. As I said, a huge percentage of the overall increases are from that. In the next several pages, what I've done is summarize the latest view, and this is the proposed budget with variance document that Clarence shared earlier today. And this was, I think, one of the first times where I said, now that's a document that we can actually use. It's been very painful getting there, but I think now we have a document, and you'll see in each one of these subsequent slides, and you all have these where we're summarizing the percent increases and decreases at each one of these levels. So I'll pause there and look for sort of any feedback that people already have, or any discussion or questions that people have.
I guess, John, I've got a question going back, and it's not page number, but I think it's on it's the slide where you start at 6.1, you work your way down to 4.09. Yes.
The reductions to initial budget proposal, and I'll add page numbers right now. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. The capital requests, 88 and 10, 98,000. Are those things that we think we're going to catch in a bonding, or are those things we just aren't going to spend money on, and we're going to push them off another year or 3 or what have you?
Randy, I think the conversation was a lot of that was at Helen Keller, and we were saying there's a lot of long-term strategic stuff that needs to be done. So why spend the money? We know we're going to be doing a major project in the near future, when that stuff you spend it and you end up ripping it out to do the major project. So there was a conscious decision to pull it out. There was an acknowledgement of the need, but we're hoping to roll it into some sort of major project.
Yeah, I think while we may have the need to do larger capital projects, these were the kind of do a little, put a little duct tape type things that we thought we really shouldn't do that, because we can do that for less, and let's do the serious projects. Let's talk about the serious projects in the not too distant future.
Okay, fair enough, good.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can. Sorry, Jenny. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say generally that I really like it. I like your approach. I really like the first slide where you outline the sort of student needs versus town needs. It wasn't quite, when you first mentioned themes, I wasn't quite sure what you meant, but seeing it all spelled out. I mean, even little things, the total budget increase percentages up at the top, and how those are, highlighted, the contractual increases versus the budget increases. I don't know. I just think it's really nicely done, and it's going to tell a good story, not a fictional one, but I think it's going to lay it out really well for tomorrow night. So very hopeful. And thank you for the work that you put into this.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any additional feedback? And you know, it's out there. I want to be careful about not creating an online meeting by asking for feedback from more than a quorum of the board. But if there's something specific that people wanted to sort of touch base on ahead of the meeting tomorrow, you know, just hit me up and we can talk on the phone.
John, just one last thing. Kindergarten enrollment projection 108.
Yes.
I kind of thought we heard from Kim tonight. She's in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
What's your take there?
Yeah. So I mean, and we've got the Prada, we've got the, whatchamacallit, the MMI. I think that's right. And we've got Kim's projection. This is a reflection of what sort of we had been using, which is the Prada numbers. And that's sort of across the board. That plus 22, I mean, you know, I trust Kim's gut above everyone else. It's a lot, but it is the sort of the projection that we had been working off of. That said, if we were really working off that projection, there's a reason there's an asterisk next to that K, right? We would be asking for another kindergarten teacher. Like 21.6 kids in a kindergarten class. Like I can't imagine, you know, reasonable educators saying, yeah, it's a good idea. Let's do that. So I think we're already kind of playing down that number from the perspective of the actual adding of positions, right? The only addition here is on the fourth grade level for addressing what we are very confident about, which is that 96 enrollment number.
John, I wonder if it would be helpful on this particular slide where the asterisk is next to the 4.
Yep.
To indicate that projected class size of 19.2
Yep.
includes the new teacher or the additional teacher.
I think that's right. I think we're using asterisk kind of universally as like, hey, there's something interesting here. But the appropriate use of that is to actually have some little footnotes here and to make it really clear what we're talking about. So that's great feedback.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the kindergarten thing. I would not make it 108 for a couple of different reasons.
Okay.
One, I don't think it's going to be close to being accurate. And two, that you're going to show 21.6 and you're not going to be asking for a teacher. And when that happens, for real, we're going to be asking for a teacher, but we're going to have this out there as an indication that we didn't want one. So I'm not a fan of putting information in that we know not to be accurate. And I don't think 108 is close to being accurate. So.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I think it's a good point. And you know, not to belabor the point and you know, prolong the meeting unnecessarily, but I think the Prada number, had the Prada number included the sort of we are living in COVID land, I would have more confidence in it. But it is the same sort of simple number that we've always had. And so, you know, if it was saying 108 and it's like, no, because you're not thinking of these other impacts of COVID, then I would hold a lot more credence. But I think you're right. And I think, I mean, I don't want to just make up another number. So I'll look at the MMI number, and I know that was lower. I
think that was 96. Yeah.
All right, let me try one more avenue at you then, because they're going to come back and say, why don't you have 21 in grades 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah. I agree. I will put another number in there. I think the MMI number of 96 is much closer to what it actually is. I'll run it to see what that projected class size is and see if that actually is closer to what we think is reasonable.
I mean, that'll be 19, but it'll look a little better than.
A little bit better, but yeah.
What does it make sense to include both projections, Prada and MMI?
Possibly. Randy, I think your point is very well made. I agree, and
because there's going to be pushback. I mean, everybody that's been through more than one of these is going to know that the 16.4 and the 16.6 and the 17. They're going to do the math, taking a teacher out and go, why can't that be 20 or 21? You have 21 in kindergarten.
Right.
So,
Agreed.
anyways, okay, fair enough.
Good.
John, should I assume that slides 15 and 16 are not going to be used?
Correct.
Thank you.
Hey, John, why not add a column that says number of sections?
Yeah, that would work.
Good point. Good point, Kim.
I'm going to do one of these guys and I'm going to insert a comment. Kim says, add sections. See, that's how I differentiate the comments that I'm actually going to do versus, I'll consider, right? All right. And then overall, we just got to fix this whole thing, right? Make sure that this is consistent with what we're actually going to do. Okay, good.
You don't have to go to work tomorrow, do you?
This is my life, Randy. This is my life.
John, on the new positions and programs, should we add the central office addition of director of digital learning?
Yeah,
And
you
what
know
our
what,
thoughts-
Jeff? I think that's spot on. I've been thinking about that a lot because let me show you where that is right now. Scroll. Slide 14, central office, buried inside of that. This is kind of a marquee thing, right?
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and I'm not the least bit ashamed of it. It's an important move that we're making, and I'm proud of that, and I think you're right.
Yep.
So I'll find a place for it to fit here.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any additional feedback?
And you'll be prepared, yeah, but you can tell it's getting late. You'll be prepared to speak to the function summary of the increases in curriculum in magnet
Yes.
school is a small number, but student activities, et cetera. 'Cause what they'll do is they'll run up and down the percent of change, and anything that's larger than 5, they'll be asking questions about.
Agreed. And that, I think when we started the process, that was the number we set it at, to make sure that we were focused on this.
As they run down those percentage changes, our accounting code structures are going to create some big negatives also. So if that's their process, this year may not be a way to do that, an efficient way to do it, because you're going to see some significant negatives that aren't really negatives. They're just it being moved to a different account.
They ignore the negatives though, Clarence.
Oh, okay.
Now.
And, but some of the significant negatives are actually this comes out of one big transportation line and goes into transportation for regular, for general education versus special education.
Yeah, I think it's,
Your slide that has Easton Board of Education function summary, that's where the rubber hits the road.
Slide 19. Yeah. And
I'm not sure what
it's the last one. It's the last one.
Last one.
Yep. Which, since we're in the commenting mood, let's make sure that we have page numbers. Good. Any additional feedback? I mean, I really appreciate everyone's willingness to do this in the process. And frankly, I would recommend that in the future, we should just schedule, because this actually didn't take that long. It took maybe 30 minutes. We could have a special meeting where 2 weeks prior to the presentation, we go through this process, and then, public can see this, and we can all, make sure that we're happy with it. But really appreciate us being able to tack this on to the agenda and have the conversation. Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right.
John, can I just ask a question about sorry.
No,
Can you
please.
hear or see me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Just with the meeting tomorrow night being a Zoom meeting, and I know we don't have a huge participation left for the evening, but I don't know if you just want to sort of speak for a minute about the format of the meeting and, you know, who's
Please.
presenting to who, and
Yeah.
just that it isn't a typical board meeting. Like there isn't public comment at the beginning, and that even board members are really just sort of there for for moral support.
Jenny, thank you. I really appreciate you mentioning that. So just so that everybody understands, and feel free, anyone on the board who wants to chip in and sort of give sort of commentary on this. This is a hearing. This is an opportunity for us to essentially come to the Board of Finance and to testify on behalf of our budget. This is us talking to them about sort of why we want to invest the money that we want to invest, and sort of making sure that we're making a clear presentation. They've asked for many sort of reports and documents that we have been sort of sending over the course of the last couple of weeks, and as they are ingesting all that, they're coming up with questions. So tomorrow is going to be a lot of questions and answers, primarily aimed at me, with Rydell in the seat next to me. I don't have any issue with, from an ego perspective, saying that's a very good question. We'll have to get back to you on that one. And the number of things that they could get to, it's immense. I also don't have any issues saying, you know what, Clarence, are you able to answer that? If not, then okay, we'll have to come back to you. Or Jeff, do you know the answer to that? I think Jeff has a huge amount of institutional knowledge that we'd be fools not to leverage as well. But this session is primarily going to be the Board of Finance sort of directing questions to me and to Rydell. Jenny, is there anything that I missed from that description that you wanted to make sure I touched on?
No, I don't think so. And I just wanted to hear from you if there had been any changes in format since it was going to be remote.
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if anyone's attended some of these sessions. I've peeked in on some of them. We do plan on broadcasting to YouTube tomorrow as well. I don't know if Christine is listening in right now. I see her there, so we might be doing a little test after this. But yeah, I think we're pretty well lined up to do that. Great. If there is no additional questions or comments or discussion on 6E, going once, hearing none, we'll move to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to make comment, please feel free to raise your hand using, there we go. Okay, I see Allison, and anyone else, if you go to the participant window, you should be able to indicate that you'd like to make comment by raising your hand or turn on your video and wave at us. I will ask Allison to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, we can.
Well, jam-packed agenda today. And in meetings like this, for me at least, it brings a lot more questions. And this is not the forum for two-way conversations. So I'd like to suggest some kind of town hall, not to rely just on emails. But there's a lot of the public out here on these meetings, and we really don't get to have any kind of two-way conversation. So that's just a suggestion. I would also like to see equal time spent at these board meetings, talking about what the district's doing to advance STEM and STEAM into the curriculum, coding, engineering, and robotics. I have said this on almost every board meeting, and I never hear it. I also would like to state, listening to this call tonight, I don't know when it became such a bad thing to be a smart student, to be not affected by things of like COVID. I don't know why the district thinks this group of kids, which is a good number, don't deserve to move forward at their pace. I've also heard a lot tonight about remediation, falling behind, and I honestly don't know where this came from. Every board meeting I've listened to practically has painted a very rosy picture. In fact, guaranteeing we'll get through the curriculum this year plus everything that we missed last year. So I don't know how we ended up here tonight. And we came here as well for the schools. We came to Easton for the schools, and we are looking to leave Easton because of the schools. Thank you.
Any additional public comment? Okay. Hearing none. Board member comment? Jeff?
Gentlemen,
Yeah, please.
I just want to wish you luck tomorrow, break a leg and knock them dead.
Thank you, Jeff. Any additional? Yes, Devin.
Jeff beat me to the punch. I was going to say the same thing. Good luck. You'll have a Zoom audience, rooting you guys on, and I'm sure you'll do awesome.
Thank you.
You could pick up your pom-poms at the central office. They'll be available. And
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to all of our administrators. I feel like in the last couple of meetings, 2 or 3 meeting cycles, as questions have been posed, the amount of time and effort that has gone into really giving us very thorough, detailed answers to those questions is very evident. So, Jen in our executive session today, Dr. Harrison with the DEI presentation in the beginning, I just feel like there's a tremendous, not that you haven't been responsive to our questions in the past, but I think that the amount of time and depth that's going into those responses is really appreciated. And I think we're learning a lot in the process.
John, I just want to make a quick note. I assume have we distributed, made sure everybody in the town that wants to Zoom in tomorrow is aware that the meeting is happening?
Jenny, do you want to field that one?
I just requested the Zoom link and I'm going to blast it out to as many places as possible. Really should have gotten on that today, but my day took a bit of a turn. So first thing tomorrow morning, we'll start to, it'll certainly be posted on our website. I don't know if the link is live on the town calendar yet. I've been checking daily and there wasn't anything, I think as of yesterday, still. So I will take a look. The information that I got was that they're being posted like the day before, that there hasn't been a lot of lead time, but John was able to provide me with the Zoom link. So we should be able to push that out to people.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thanks for doing that too. Okay. Yes, Dr. Harrison.
So I'm not a board member, but I left out something in my comments. If I could just add in, I just want to say a huge thank you to Jenny and to Devin, who brought us in central office breakfast on Friday. It was very, very well appreciated. And for those of us who have worked in school buildings, who now work in central office, it was nice to feel a little bit of the love that we know that our teachers and administrators get from our families and students on a regular basis, and it is well deserved. I'm not eating carbs, so there was nothing really I can enjoy, but it just was nice for the central office employees to feel a moment of feeling special and being recognized. And so on behalf of all of them, I want to say thank you to the two of you. I also want to just say publicly a sincere thank you to each and every one of our board members. I think that the community sees the amount of time that you all spend in these meetings working on behalf of our students. What they don't see is what I see, and that is the hours and hours and hours of work behind the scenes, whether it is going through materials, whether it is digging into budgets and asking really thoughtful and meaningful questions, or simple things like helping with communicating about upcoming meetings. I mean, all of those pieces are so much a part of what I think makes our our district special. And March is Board Member Appreciation Month. And so I didn't want this time to pass without just at least saying that the efforts that you all put in on behalf of our students and our community are very much appreciated. And when I'm getting to that place of exhaustion, I remember that half the meetings I was in, you were also in, and this is not your full-time job. So I just want to say on behalf of our entire team, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rydell. Very much appreciated. And thanks to everyone in central office. You all have been through the ringer and been doing so much. I mean, Vicki certainly deserves a major call out for all the great work that she's been doing to, help make sure that everyone's getting the opportunity to get vaccinated and all that. And just thank you so much to everyone in central office. Clarence, again, wouldn't trade places with you for the world. Sorry. No thanks.
I'm still looking for takers.
But thank you for all you're doing. Thanks to everybody so much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. Any seconds?
Second.
Yes, Jenny did the 2 thumbs up second, which that counts for twice as much. So all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Unanimously, we are adjourned at 10:54 p.m.